Is an MP who, of course, is representing one of the hardest hit bushfire areas, Darren Chester. He's the Veterans Affairs Minister. Minister, we appreciate your time. I am going to get to the shenanigans of your party room in a moment. But first, on the bushfire recovery, I note that there has been some relief in your region with the rain falling over the weekend. I know there was a ceremony in Mallacoota hailing the ADF and emergency services who were involved in the bushfire effort there. It's good to see them being recognised, but still a long road ahead, of course. We've got some pictures here to show our viewers. I think they're from your Facebook page showing a bridge being repaired there yesterday. You've pointed out it's really important that this all needs to happen by Easter so tourists can get back in there over the holidays. Would the option of a royal visit by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge be something that would be welcome news in your part of the world, do you think?
Oh, Ashley, I'd love it. Look, one thing about the Royals, they do boost the morale of a community, and we've been through a pretty tough time in Gippsland, and I'm going to make my bid straight away. I mean, the Buchan Caves actually have a thing called the Royal Cave, so surely we can be the first off the rank there and request a royal visit to the Royal Cave at Buchan. But anyway, the Army has been involved today and re-established access at Buchan. It's a very popular cave reserve there, and they've put a new bridge in today, which has been some work with the Australian Army and our international forces, and that's a good thing. So, you know, we're working hard to try and get some of that tourism infrastructure up and running as quickly as possible so that people know our community is open for business. They can come back and visit the bushfire-affected areas.
Well, hopefully Mallacoota and the surrounding areas will be on the itinerary for the Royals when they visit. We do need to, of course, look at the parliamentary dramas there in Canberra. I understand Josh Frydenberg had a dig at some of your colleagues in the Coalition Party Room meeting this morning for essentially distracting yesterday from the good news of the Indonesian President's visit with all of the dramas surrounding the Deputy Speaker role. Is that fair criticism? I mean, it was pretty embarrassing, wasn't it, for Mr McCormack and for you as one of his key backers to lose that parliamentary ballot for Deputy Speaker?
Well, what Josh had to say in the joint party room is not something I'd normally talk about, but more broadly he made the point that we have got a good news story to tell with the work we're doing yesterday with the Indonesian President in town and the new free trade agreement, work we're doing with major investment in infrastructure right around Australia, investments in protecting our communities that have been impacted by bushfires, droughts and now floods. I mean, these are all good things that the government is doing, and it is distracting to have things occur in this place which take us off the key reason we come here. And the key reason I come here is to try and make a difference for the people of Gippsland and for regional Australia more broadly, and that should be our focus. So, yeah, look, I can understand why there's a bit of frustration around the place, but it's not going to distract me from the job I'm trying to do in my portfolio and in representing my electorate.
Is Michael McCormack on notice, do you think? Do you expect he will face another leadership challenge before too long?
Look, I understand why the media wants to run that commentary. You know, there's a leadership spill last week, but the facts just don't support the rhetoric that's coming out. This isn't just the media whipping this up, Darren Chester, and you know it. No, but actually, let me finish. The facts don't support the rhetoric. Michael has been elected 3 times by our party room in 2 years. So he came in when Barnaby resigned. Then he was re-elected after the election, after we held every one of our lower house seats, a great result for our party. And then he was re-elected last week again. So he's been elected 3 times in 2 years. And I'd say a little bit less speculation about Michael's future and more of a focus on the work he's doing for our party would be in order. But I can understand why the media wants to run the story, because some of my colleagues have been putting messages out there which are counterproductive.
Well, that's right. I mean, just this morning, your colleague Matt Canavan was urging Mr McCormack to unite the party. He also seemed to be hinting and, well, essentially foreshadowing the possibility of other members defecting. Do you expect to see any other defections from the Nats?
Look, we need to turn the temperature down on our party room. I mean, maybe a few less emissions would turn the temperature down in the National Party room. We need to focus on the reasons we've been elected, and that is to represent regional Australians here in this place. It's absolutely appropriate that members have different opinions on policy areas, and they voice those opinions and represent their communities in the way they want to represent them. But too much of the commentary at the moment is based on personality issues, not on policy. So my focus is on making sure that I'm here to represent regional Australians, that I back my leader in Michael McCormack. I think he's doing a bloody good job in difficult circumstances, and the government's agenda to reduce taxes, to help build a safer, stronger and more prosperous regional Australia is a good agenda, and we're delivering it on the ground despite some pretty tough conditions. We've got droughts out there, we've still had the impact obviously of the bushfires across large parts of regional Australia and now flooding in some parts of Australia. There's a lot of issues there for us to be working on.
Llew O'Brien, the Nats defector, of course, who is now the Deputy Speaker, he attacked Michael McCormack for holding a party meeting in Victoria last year that coincided with the Melbourne Cup. It's been reported that you were one of the MPs who attended that meeting. In hindsight, was that a wise move? I mean, I understand the rules were followed carefully, but does it pass the pub test to arrange a party meeting to coincide with an event like the Melbourne Cup?
Well, Ash, the actual coverage of that isn't entirely accurate. The party meeting was held in a little place called Ngambia. I had meetings with local veterans communities throughout the day leading up to it, and then we had our party meeting where we discussed our strategy going forward as a party, and I think that finished on the Friday. Then I went back to my electorate for 3 days, and on my way to Melbourne to fly overseas, I attended the Melbourne Cup for 3 hours on the first Tuesday in November. So there's a 3-day gap between the two events you're referring to. So look, parties have to meet. We choose to meet as a national party regularly in regional areas so that our focus is on the communities we represent. If you have meetings in this place here in Canberra all the time, they get distracted by the normal activities of the building. So we try and get to places where we can just focus on long-term strategies for regional Australia and come up with policy positions which we think are good for regional areas. So we've done that. I mean, I've been a member of Parliament now for 12 years. I think we've had one of those meetings at least once a year since then.
Just finally, Malcolm Turnbull declared yesterday it would be nuts to build more coal-fired power stations for economic, for environmental reasons. As someone who acknowledges the link between climate change and bushfires that have devastated your electorate over summer, would you agree with that, or do you think there is a place for a new coal-fired power station in Australia?
Well, what we've announced, actually, I think it's about $4 million for a feasibility study into a coal-fired power station proposal in northern Queensland. The local community wants us to do that work, so the feasibility work should be done, and we'll see if the case stacks up. And that's only appropriate. That's what governments do. In my own electorate,
you would have looked at this, though. What's your view on this? Do you think that coal-fired power stations have a place here in Australia?
Well, yes, they do, actually. In my electorate, Gippsland and Latrobe Valley, we've got 3 big power stations which are basically fueling the energy needs of the eastern parts of the eastern states here in Australia. So right throughout Victoria, through to New South Wales and South Australia, through the national electricity grid, Latrobe Valley Power Station are providing reliable baseload energy for our community. So they do have a role to play. But we've also seen at the same time an increase in renewable energies, household investment, government investment, supporting renewable energy. So we've got to get the balance right, and I think the feasibility study is appropriate. It was something we announced, I believe, in the election campaign for that work to go ahead. Let's do the work and see if it stacks up.
Darren Chester, appreciate you joining us live there from Canberra. Thank you.
All the best, Ash. Thank you.